let's just, I mean, if why don't we go to the essential components for 2, and then we can maybe backtrack and do the essential component in 1 if you want. If you want to kind of walk through a couple, talk about a couple specifically.
Essential components are B and D, correct? So
Yeah.
B is establish a culture for learning.
Yeah.
As you look at the difference in these levels, what do you notice is different between unsatisfactory to basic to proficient to distinguished? What do you see? What kinds of differences do you see? What?
Positivity.
Yep. Higher expectations
Our expectations for?
as you move towards distinguished with students.
Okay.
Unsatisfactory, you have teachers say, why don't you try this easier problem? Distinguished, you have students question one another.
If you, I mean,
Or student
all of them in domain 2 and 3, you'll notice going from one side to the other, it turns from the teacher saying it to the student saying it. And as we went into classrooms this year and kind of got ready for this, you start typing out things that you hear. You start typing out things that you see a little differently than we used to, because this is what we have to see. This is what we have to find. You know, it goes from the teacher saying this idea is really important to the distinguished, the student asking classmates to explain a concept or procedure. So it really goes from teacher-driven, teacher-led to student-led throughout domain 2 and 3. So if you look at that, it goes from that. And some of the verbiage they use from sometimes, always. There's a lot of words like always in the distinguished part of things in domain 2 and 3. Actually, all the domains. Those Radler right?
And I think if you look at this one specifically under basic, you know, only some students get to work after an assignment is given or after entering the room. Well, I mean, there are lots of rooms where when you give an assignment, you know, if you look around, you know, there are classrooms where I only see some of the kids that actually are getting their book out or getting whatever they need out to get to work. Okay, now, as a teacher, you know, if you're going around and making sure that those kids who are not on task right away are getting stuff out and getting going, you know, versus a teacher who, you know, doesn't do that. Okay, I mean, then if not every kid gets to work, or just some of them do, you know, that's basic. Okay, whereas the jump to proficient is students get down to work right away when an assignment is given or after entering the room. And so, to me, that's going to come down to establishing that procedure right off the bat. You know, the expectation, setting that expectation. You know, the expectation is when you walk in the room, you know, we're going to have this for a warm-up. Here's where it's going to be. You know, and so... And then distinguished students work even when the teacher isn't working with them or directing their efforts. So there's just there are days, there are lessons, there are groups of kids. There are lots of factors that go into this, which is why us being in the rooms more often is going to be important. But it would be real easy. It would be real easy with certain groups of kids and certain lessons or whatever, certain days, where to be basic, where only some of the kids are doing what they're supposed to do when assignments given. At least that's what I remember from my classroom. But so I think that's a pretty good. Good example of the different levels as it relates to this.
We don't have it up there, but the first page under each component, like 2B, where there's a kind of an overview of what that means or what they expect that to mean. If you read through that before you start looking at some of this other stuff, it gives you a pretty good idea of what they're expecting as you go through. I mean, if you read through the establish a culture of learning, it says what it is, and this is what they think good culture of learning is, it helps you when you get over here to the attributes and things like that.
And I think the indicators personally at the bottom are very helpful. For example, you just picked out 2B, an essential component. It says at the bottom, the indicators, belief in the value of work, high expectations, recognition of quality, recognition of effort and persistence, expectation for all students to participate. You know, that kind of summed it up for me, what this whole component's about. That, rather than all that, I may think it's all important, but that really summed it up for me to help out for 2B. And you can do that with each component, 2C, 2D, and it kind of summed it up for me really well.